Hi everyone. So we are now looking at testing the injectors and see how they flow. Now, I know this looks a little weird, but this is my setup to test that out. So we have a device that I bought off of Amazon. These things are actually not really expensive, and it comes with the adapter, which you insert the injector into on one end, and you insert the little pipe that connects to your cleaner on the other end. So actually saves me the trouble of having to build one of these using shrink tubing and a bunch of other rubber hoses pieces assembled together. There is a number of videos online on YouTube that shows how to do that. I just don't want to go through the trouble. Then we'll have the injector we're going to be testing. I have this kind of a weird connection here because the connectors actually come with the tester are useless. I cannot insert both of them into the connector. It's a pretty small connector on this particular injector, so both of them will not get in. So I'm using crocodile connectors in order to connect to the pins, and I'm using this little piece of plastic to separate the connectors so that they don't touch. Obviously, that would create some sparks, right? So it's kind of riggedy, but it's going to do the job here. Now, frankly, I have tested one of those already. I got some pretty bad results. They do click, which is good, and that's what this device actually is going to help us. You need a battery in order to power this little box here. So they click, but they don't spray. And the idea is that you're going to be spraying some cleaner through the little pipe, through the adapter, into the injector, and then you're going to action the actual injector by powering it on and off in order to release the fluid through the injector itself. By doing so, you will cleaning it up. You'll be cleaning it up, and you'll be able to take a look at the pattern of the spray outside. So it should be a nice mist, right? And if you have a kind of a jet, then that's usually when your injector is not working properly. Or in my case, if you have nothing at all, then you have a bigger issue. And that is kind of what I've witnessed on this one, and I wanted to reproduce the test to show you what could be the problem. Now, it's a very interesting situation because in this particular case, the injector actually does click, but it does not spray. So the first step here is going to be spraying. So that's it. It's pressurized now. I have some fluid that has flown into the chamber and into the to the injector. Now I'm going to connect the test box here. We're going to choose the continuous mode in this case. So you can choose one of the different modes available. So short, medium, long. I will go with short actually in this case, and I'm just going to pulse manually. And we hear the injector actually clicking. I'm not sure whether you can hear that. But there's actually nothing that's coming out of it. So that is a bit of a problem, obviously, because we now have pressure. There is fluid, which is actually even leaking outside now because there's too much of it. But there is absolutely nothing that's coming out of it. So that could be several things. The solenoid inside the injector might still be working, and that's what we're hearing. And apparently that piece works. Now the needle can still be blocked, right? So there are different approaches for that. One of them is to actually just soak them for a little while and see if it dissolves the crap that's inside. I mean, this car hasn't been started in a year, which is really not that much on the grand scheme of things, but you could have some varnishing happening, which happens when you have fuel that stays in the system for too long and it creates a deposit that dries out and that looks like varnish. In order to clean that out, I've cleaned out a small carburetor on an RC plane in the past. You need to use actual paint remover, which removes varnish, right, and removes paint. So that actually helps with dissolving whatever is clogging the space here. The problem is that it's too thick, right? It's a very thick paste, so it won't be a good application for the problem we have here. So I will test the other ones and see what's happening. I tested that one earlier today, and this one was behaving the exact same way. So it's clicking, but nothing's coming out of it. Normally, you don't really need pressure because when this is open, the fluid should come right out. It should come straight out of the injector as a mist or as dripping or as whatever, but it will actually come out, right? It will become an open circuit, if you will, and that should allow for whatever fluid you're sending to the injector to go and flow through it. In this particular case, again, we're not seeing much action, so there could be something else going on, right? Which is not really good news. Now I have 2 more injectors I'm going to be testing, and I'll see what happens and report back in a few minutes. So stay put. All right, so I've tested all of them. None of them are actually spraying anything. Like there's nothing going through any of those. No fluid, no dripping, no mist, no spraying, no jets, no nothing, absolutely nothing. So that's not good news. I'm gonna test it one more time. This one actually behaves even a little bit differently. This one's a little bit more concerning in my opinion because it clicks and then it just stops. Listen to this, which is very strange. Yeah, it's like it clicks. Can barely hear it, and then it just stops clicking, and I'm on a continuous mode here on the tester, which means that it should just continue clicking, right? I know there is pressure in the whole jig here because when I disconnect this, yeah, you hear a little pshweet, so that means that there was pressure in the system. So I don't exactly know what's going on here. It sounds very surprising that none of them would be working. So especially since the car was actually running, right? So if you recall, one of the codes that I had was a misfire. This one also has a bit of damage at the very top here, which is it's interesting because it looks like it was actually yanked out or pried on with pliers. That certainly is not me because I was extremely careful in removing all of them. There was one that was stuck on the block, if you recall, and the other ones were actually still on the intake manifold. So they were all removed gently. I did not try to grab them with pliers or anything like that. So that tells me that maybe these were actually replaced once already. But the fact that they're not spraying anything at all, like nothing, is just a little bit surprising. All right, guys. So what I did is I actually gathered my injectors and put them in a little cup here, and soaked some car cleaner at the top and at the bottom, and it's been like that for about an hour. So we're gonna give it another shot and see whether we get better results. Did a little bit of research in the meantime, and there really isn't a ton of information about how to deal with injectors that are stuck closed. I might actually need to replace them. That's a possibility. And if I end up spending too much time on this, quite frankly, I might just go down that path, because I was just looking at the cost of 4 new injectors on Amazon, and I can find them, and that's in Canada, by the way. Amazon Canada, I can probably, well, by the looks of it, a set of 4 remanufactured, is about $125. So, to be honest, might not be worth it continuing to mess around with the things and trying to get them to work if it's gonna cost me $120 to fix them, or to replace them more so. Yeah, that's probably going to be the route that I'm gonna take. There we go. So as you can tell, it's clicking, but there's still nothing that's coming out of it, and I can let it click for a while and see what happens. I've also seen a few people saying that tapping the injector on the side could actually unstick it, so we're gonna try that. Don't want to tap too hard, obviously. It's the upper portion that you have to tap. Yep, much of a result here, unfortunately. It might free itself up over time with the solenoid being active inside and the fluid hopefully getting in there. Yeah, there's really not much I can do here, but as you can tell, there's nothing that's coming out of it. So the injector is clicking, it's doing what it's supposed to. There's just no fluid coming out of it, and it's dying now, which is interesting. It just stopped. So, well, that's an interesting development.
Much later.
Hey everyone, okay, well, I think I got a combination of problems here, because I was testing an injector and it clicked and then it stopped clicking, and I'm like, okay, well, this is really odd. This battery in this car has been in my garage for a long time, month literally, without being recharged. I did recharge it actually probably about a month ago. Chances are the battery is actually depleted, because when I'm sending the pulse, I'm getting about 8 volts, which is probably not sufficient. These injectors actually work on 12. And I realized that because when I was sending the pulse, I could see the indicator, the mode indicator on the box here, kind of dimming a little bit, and that's obviously not something that should be happening. So I'm going to try to measure the battery at the terminals, and I might need to put it back in charge, because what I'm thinking is that the injectors might be okay, but there's just not enough voltage. The battery is basically depleted, and that's what's causing all these issues, right? So if I measure it up here, yeah, the battery is at 8 volts, so obviously it should be more in the neighborhood of 13. Okay, well, this again shows you that you have to validate every single component as part of your setup to make sure things work properly. Maybe the injectors are actually fine. There is just not enough current in order for them to fully open, or there might be something to it. Could be a combination of things again, right? So I'm gonna get my battery and put it to charge, and I'm gonna try that again in a little while. All right, so see you soon. Okay, so the battery is currently charging, and my charger is telling me it's full, which really doesn't make any sense. I'm wondering whether I'm having a battery problem too. Although there is an interesting development here, which I'm gonna show you. Now, first of all, the injector is clicking a lot louder, right? Which is a very good sign. And the second aspect is that I'm actually getting spray coming through it. So check this out. You see how loud this is clicking? And when I send my carb cleaner in it, now I'm getting a nice little mist here, right? Which is exactly what you want. And this one is spraying nicely and evenly. Yeah, it's looking good. I'm going to try to give you a better view here. There we are. So I'm going to spray a little bit more. This one seems to be clean overall. See, it sprays very nicely. And that's what you want. So we're good. So that's a very positive development, because I was trying to lose faith really in this. I'm gonna test a second one. You should do a back flush as well, if possible, just to actually flush it both ways. It might be a little tricky for me to do it because I don't have the setup to do this. You would need to actually flow the liquid through there and actually do a very similar process. In this particular case, I don't think this little setup here allows me to do that. Because it's really meant to connect at the top here. The little white apparatus here only connects to the top of the injector, right? Not the bottom. That being said, I'm just going to disconnect that now. It should be good. Connection is actually really strong now. Yeah, I don't believe that I can connect this the other way. No, by the looks of it, I can't. So I'm probably just going to test them this way, which in my opinion is probably sufficient. There shouldn't be anything left in this injector. So this one actually tested okay. So we got 1 out of the 4 so far. I'm going to connect the other one here and run the full test again so that you can see how you do this. So I'm going to disconnect this. And by the way, this little setup here, I had to use some Teflon tape in order for the little straw to actually hold in the white thing here. So just expect to do that on your end as well. In this case, again, I'm still using the original O-rings. We're gonna be replacing all this a little bit later. So I've got it in the apparatus now. I just realized that these little crocodiles actually do reach the pin, which is a much better and easier setup. If I can grab the pin, which should be here, there we are. Then I'll run this over, put it here, plug it to the carburetor cleaner, and go to town again. Having a problem. Oh, there we go. I think I'm good here. There we go. See the difference again? It's making a very loud sound. And here we go. Nice little mist again. This one looks clean. It works as it should. Very happy with that. So I'm just gonna test the two others. I won't film it because you get the idea now. You see how it works. And I'll give you the results back in a moment. All right, so the next step here, now that the injectors are clean, so I got my 4 injectors. They're clean. I need to remove all the old seals. We're gonna redress them with the new seals and get all this done. So all this is ready, which I'm really happy with. I mean, I'm glad I figured that out because I was starting to wonder whether I would actually need to replace them all. So glad that I don't have to, especially since they're working correctly. Now the next step is these little splitters, or the pieces that actually go right at the entrance of each of the intake chambers on the block. If you recall, you take these out actually at the very beginning, right? Once the intake manifold is out, you remove those, and we need to clean them up, right? And they're not really, I don't find them necessarily easy to clean. I've used a brake cleaner, I've used a carb cleaner. I've got like a powerful parts cleaner as well that didn't seem to actually really impact them all. So I started to go down another path, which is using one of these little blue scrapers. It's basically a little blade that I started using on one of them, and it seems to be working correctly, or it seems to be working pretty well. In fact, all the black stuff that you see here is coming from the previous one I was cleaning up. So I just want to show you what that looks like and the way I'm doing it. So I'm using the little scraper, and I'm just running the blade on the top of each of these little flaps, right? And you see how much crap it's actually taking out. This is actually baked on the splitter. The splitter is actually made of 2 parts. You have this that's metallic, and the sides seem to be a very strong kind of plastic. It has to be strong because obviously it's exposed to pretty high temperatures, sitting right into the block. But that still seems to be plastic, which is a little surprising. But these little scrapers actually work really well, and as you can tell, I'm really getting back to the metal here, which is what you want. I really wanted to clean this as best as I could. So now once this is done, you can do a final cleaning with a degreaser or with a carb cleaner or something of that nature, and you will actually end up removing the very last kind of film of dirt that's still on there, right? But at that point, you're removing very little. You're removing just really the residue, right? That's on the plate, and you do this on both sides. That way, see actually how much garbage comes out, and that's after I actually soak that in various kinds of cleaners and chemicals, and it's still you really need to have a more mechanical approach, I guess, in the way you remove the residue off of these little parts here. I'll show you the end result. I'm not gonna film the whole thing, but wanted to share with you this method. These little scrubbers or scrapers, can find this at the dollar store. That's where I bought this from. They come really handy for all sorts of things. Whether you want to remove residues from your countertop, if you install a countertop in a kitchen, quartz, right, and you want to remove some residues of glue and stuff. If you want to clean your windows and you have some residue, hard residue from different things, all kinds of surfaces, these things actually come really handy. So again, that would be my suggestion. You can do it the way you want at the end, but this is actually working pretty well. So see, it really didn't take me long, and I'm back to the metal. So I'm gonna send this back to soak. Make sure that you actually remove as much as you can. Again, you can use one of these little pointy tools. That works well too. Go easy again, right? But that allows you to get into the little corners and little areas that it's more difficult to get to. Well, you can use a little brush too. I have a brush here in my little soaking bath. That works well too. But all these different tools are a valid method. All right, so I'll show you the end result, and I'm going to reassemble, hopefully, all of this very shortly. All right, so we are back with our injectors, and we will be now replacing the seals. Before that, I just wanted to show you where I was at. Like, this is where I ended with those little flaps here. So they're clean. Note that they only go one way in the engine block. You can go wrong if you put them reverse. This little flap will not go all the way in, and you'll see it right away. It will protrude by about 1/4 inch. So if you flip it, it's going to slide right in its place, right? So just one quick note. Now, so I read all the instructions. That these are actually Bosch parts, right? So this manual actually gives you a bunch of information. One thing that I did read the instructions. There is a ring in particular that they call that they call as must be replaced. So that's the O-ring at the top, meaning the blue one right here at the very top. This happens to be blue in my case. The replacement ones are actually blue too. And the combustion chamber ring, which is all the way at the bottom there. This one, actually, I took one out already on one of the injectors. It was completely cooked, and it kind of crumbled on the way out. Now, incidentally, the new ones are very solid. They're very rigid, right? So I guess they're designed that way. So the one that I took out was actually really, it felt really hard, but the new replacement one is about as hard, actually. So I was a little surprised on this. Then we have a split ring that's at the top there, which is what they call a support disc, right? So this is what it looks like. It's a very small little ring. And this actually is the one that I currently have on the injector. So these are the ones that we will have to take out. These are very easy to remove, actually. The top one is quite easy to remove. You will need to get one of these little pick tools, right? Things become a lot easier when you have one of those. Make sure you actually run your pick alongside the shaft so that you're not scratching the surface of your injector. And you see how the little pointy end actually comes out at the top here. That's what you want, right? You want to be able to actually use this and just lift out and over. And that's it. I'll just actually escaped in my drawer here. This is just be very careful not to actually damage the injector or any of the surfaces here, because that could compromise the seal. Now, there's this little split ring, which is a little weird to take out, but it's fundamentally just forcing on it and wrapping it around the top of the injector here and screwing it out, right? And that one comes out very easily too. You'll have to make sure that you clean everything, clean all the surfaces before you actually reassemble everything. And for the bottom one, same thing, pick tool. This one actually shows a tiny bit of damage. In fact, if you look closely, there's a bit of a gauge here. So, gouge, sorry. So if you actually same thing. Try to find a way to pick inside and make your way inside, and trying not to poke your fingers just like I did, because that actually hurts. And try not to actually scrape the surface of the shaft, because that could be problematic. This one is probably the one that's the hardest to remove, to be honest. I had some issues. I might actually end up cutting it apart, because it will be just easier. Doesn't really matter since we're replacing it anyways. But the previous one that I removed also kind of came out in pieces. And it's, like I said, it's very hard plastic. And it's, well, there you go. See, this one actually broke off. There. So that one is done. And again, there's some crap in the crevice here. So you want to make sure that you clean this out. Ideally, well, you can use some brake cleaner or some carburetor cleaner, but it comes off pretty easily. And you will, let me actually just make sure I clean this all the way. There we are. So I'm going to try to show you what this looks like once it's clean. So there is a little, it seems to be a symmetrical profile with a little groove in the middle. Although this little groove, I think, is at the same distance on both sides, but it looks like it's a little closer to this side here. So I don't believe there is a way to actually put these on. And this one to put on, to be honest, I'm a little concerned because it is super tight, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to put this on even. So now on the injector removal tool set that I bought, there is in fact a set of little adapters and little components like that normally you use to put the seals back on. Now in this particular case, however, there was, no, it's gonna sound funny, but there was actually no instructions that came with that thing. So I think it's gonna be a trial and error. I might actually do a little bit of research on the original kit to try to get more information about how I'm supposed to put this on, because it looks like it's gonna be a bit of a challenge. It could be a combination of both of these tools. In fact, there are some rings as well that you can use, and the diameter is actually the same here. So what I think you do here is you put it on top like that, and you push it. No, that's probably not the way you do it. You push it using a smaller, so there are several diameters. You push it in, try to push it alongside the shaft of that low adapter, and the ring is actually going up. So chances are there's probably an additional tool here that I'm not seeing that will help with that matter, and that actually would ensure that this seal goes up the shaft so that it's big enough to then be inserted around the shaft of the injector. As you can tell, these two match, right? So there is probably a reasoning behind it. There's also a gauge, like it's gouged, right? You see how it's actually recessed in the middle here of that little piece? And that, to me, seems to indicate that this is a receptacle for the nozzle inside so that you can actually push it in. So my guess is that I'm gonna have to push the seal alongside the shaft of this first little adapter. And once it's actually at that level, then you see how it actually fits in there. Once it's all the way up here, I will be pushing again harder in order to get it to this second adapter, at which point, actually in this case it might not even be required, but I will be able to slide it in and then pushing with the injector on there in order to fit the seal on the shaft of the injector. I'm just looking at the different components that I have in this box because there are additional little accessories, and I got the feeling that I should probably be using some of these in order to get to the end result. So I'm going to do a little bit more research and see how I'm supposed to use this toolkit, because like I said, there was no no manual that came with it, so it makes things a little bit difficult. There's a bit of a guessing game here, and I don't really like guessing. So I will look into this a little bit more and get back to you guys in a moment. All right, so I did look at the video of the original kit that I bought, and to be honest, they don't really show everything, but by the looks of it, at least I did see this one. So you would actually put it there. This is used to push the seal up this column, right? So I guess you could use a little hammer and hammer it so that the seal actually goes up the shaft of this little cone. And once it's up in the upper section here, you use one of these other ones which has a bigger hole, and you keep pushing up until you get to that section here. Then you hammer it in place so that it goes over the shaft and onto the in its final location in the groove, right? I think that at this point my best bet would be to use a hammer, and the idea is that it should go up the shaft here. And it does, but at the same time this gets wedged into the into this piece here, which is really not good. Gonna take it out. There you go, it's out. The last thing you want is to damage the seal, right? So take it up the shaft. I think I'm up the shaft here. I'm gonna keep hammer it. Yeah, I think I'm up. I'm all the way up here. And the manual also states that you should not be using any lubricant. It says here, removing combustion chamber sealing ring, that's the one here. Carefully remove the old combustion chamber sealing ring using a suitable tool. Do not damage the groove. And then there's a set of tools that I clearly don't have. That's called an assembly arbor, and an adjusting ring, and an assembly device. These are all Bosch parts. And then you have a special instruction which states do not use any lubricant. That's really, these guys are funny, because really it's not as if you could really easily slide this up the shaft of this tool here, and I'm really struggling here. I'm going to try to actually move it forward a little bit, stacking these two together. Oh well, would you look at that? It's actually now all the way up the shaft. So now I guess the next step is to continue up the stack and slightly tap the injector on the top. Yeah, well, would you look at that? That's how it works. Continue tapping a little bit until the ring gets in position, and then presumably it's going to shrink a little bit, right? Because it was extended here. Yeah, so that's how you do it. I'm learning as much as you are here. Now there's this plastic ring here that's part of the kit. I have the kit here. So you have the split washer we looked at earlier. You have the top blue gasket or O-ring. You have this little shoulder thing. You have again one of those, and you have this plastic ring which really did not exist on the original one. When we took them out, there was no ring like that. So I placed it on top here, which is the only place where this is supposed to go. And I'm probably going to leave it there because it fits nicely. And to be honest, I'm not sure whether I can even take it out without damaging it. I would need to actually lift up the little fingers on the sides in order to be able to take it out. So I'm going to leave it there. And considering that ultimately this ring here goes on top, it's funny actually because now it barely clears the combustion chamber ring. That's a problem. So see, we're all learning here, and clearly it probably would have made more sense to put that ring or that washer first. I'm really hoping this is going to shrink a little bit, because if it doesn't, that's going to spell trouble, because I won't be able to fit this over the shaft, and this is supposed to be all the way down here. That could be a bit of a problem here, because on the original seal, if I would actually use that washer, it will in fact clear easily, right, and get to that point. And here you put that little thing which will clamp on the shoulder right here, right there. So apparently the order of events should be washer first. Actually, you can take out the old one, put the washer, then put the new one, put the thing, this little tripod thing to lock the washer in place, and then you're done, right? But if you do it the other way around, just like I did, because I didn't know any better, then you run into a situation where the washer does not clear the ring, the combustion chamber ring anymore. And that's a bit of a problem. So hopefully this is going to shrink a little bit. I might let it sit overnight. I was hoping I would be able to finish this tonight, but it doesn't look like it's going to be possible. So I'm going to reassemble everything. So again, pretty easy, right? This one is easy to remove. We removed it together earlier. So replace all the seals. And once you're done, then we're going to place the injectors back on the intake manifold. All right, so we're now done with the redressing of the injectors. I gotta say, this system is kind of garbage, really. These little tripods that are supposed to actually, cling on the shoulder right here. They don't cling nothing. Like, they barely stay in place. I can see the problem here when we're gonna put this back in the system, and by luck. So one thing you have to remember when you redress the injectors, put this washer first before you replace the combustion chamber seal, because otherwise, once you put this in, it becomes very difficult to put a washer over the top of that, right? Because this expands, right, when you put it over the shaft. So it's much easier to put the washer first and then put the seal. Once everything is in place, looks like this is not going anywhere, which is good, because since this will be attached to the intake manifold when we reinsert everything, and things will be leaning towards the bottom, then this should naturally just come back up, right, as it gets into the hole on the engine block. So this system is kind of weird. In fact, it's kind of flimsy too. One of them did break off in the package before I even opened it, so it's a very weird system. Speaking of German engineering, I'm not too sure about that one. These locks here too, these things, like these rings here, not exactly 100% sure as of what they do, but they go in between the intake manifold and the injector. So if I actually bring the intake over here just for a moment, so we have the location of the injectors right here. So here, and this thing basically goes like that in this hole here, right? Because the only way this can go is in this position, so that the connector actually, which protrudes from the injector, goes through the ring, right, where you have the opening, and then actually, I'm sorry, this is the other way around. It goes like that, like the opening goes in the right direction, but this goes down, goes like this. So this ring sorts of acts as a spacer, and you see how it comes flush with the side of the like the very edge of the manifold. So that's the only reason, but I guess the little arm seeing on both sides act as a spring maybe, and I don't know. Like this, I can't really figure it out. But the next step is going to be to actually reinsert the injectors into the manifold, probably with a ring on top already in position. Try not to damage anything in the process, obviously. We're not supposed to use any lubricant in order to insert them in, but I might use something like vegetable oil or something natural in order to fit this in, because otherwise I'm concerned it might be a little difficult. And once the injectors are in place, connect them, and our system will be ready to be reinserted into the block. Right, so we're very close. I'm gonna stop for tonight though, because I need to do a little bit more research about the springs, make sure I'm not missing anything, and the best way to insert them into the intake. But it looks pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna resume this tomorrow. I'm gonna continue this tomorrow morning. Thanks.